Hello friends, welcome to a new chapter today. In this chapter we are going to learn about pharmacology. So in the pharmacology let us first learn about sympatholytics. Okay, in the sympatholytics, so in this we are going to learn about the receptor blockers, that is adrenergic receptor blockers. As I have already told you in the last class, we have two different types of adrenergic receptors, alpha and beta adrenergic receptors. So in these two types of adrenergic receptors we have alpha receptor and beta receptor. So based on these two receptors we have alpha blockers and beta blockers also. Okay, so first in this chapter we are going to learn about, we will learn about alpha blockers and then we will learn about beta blockers. These alpha blockers can be divided into two types. One, they can be either selective alpha blockers, or they can be either selective alpha blockers, or they can be non-selective alpha blockers. Okay, so in the selective alpha blockers they can be alpha 1 blocker and alpha 2 blocker. So first we will see non-selective alpha blockers. See, non-selective alpha blockers are of following types. So you will have to remember these names for sure. Okay, in the non-selective alpha blockers we have phenoxybenzamine, phentolamine and talazoline. Okay, what are the drugs we have? Okay, I'll change the color so that it becomes a little more colorful. Okay, I'll change it on either this way. 1 minute. I'm sorry. Okay, the non-selective alpha blockers include these following. What are they? There is phenoxybenzamine. Okay, then we have phentolamine. Okay, and talazoline. These three are the non-selective alpha blockers. Among all these three, phenoxybenzamine is irreversible, whereas phentolamine and talazolamine are reversible. So all these will block both alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors. So you should remember, because they are non-selective, they are not selective. That means they will block both alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors. So if you remember the alpha 1 receptor, if you remember, this alpha 1 receptor is present on blood vessels and it causes vasoconstriction, whereas this alpha 2 receptor is an autoreceptor. If you remember, autoinhibition, it causes autoinhibition. So because of blocking alpha 1 receptor, so this vasoconstriction is lost, and as a result there is vasodilatation and there is postural hypotension. Slowly, because of this vasodilatation, there will be reflex increase in sympathetic activity leading to tachycardia. So you have vasodilatation, you will see, and you will also see postural hypotension in this alpha blockers, which will further lead to tachycardia. So if you remember, this is vasomotor reversal of Dale. So if you give, this is mainly if you give epinephrine. Okay, this first there is at higher doses of epinephrine, alpha 1 receptor is activated, so and there is increase in blood pressure because of vasoconstriction activity, whereas at lower concentration there is beta 2 activity occurs. Because of vasodilatation of beta 2 activity, there is decrease in blood pressure, right? So if you give epinephrine plus alpha blocker, then there is no alpha activity, so as a result there is only beta activity which you see, right? This is downward dysplexion, or you can call it vasomotor reversal of Dale. So let us see the important important points about the phenoxybenzamine, phentolamine and talazoline. Okay, if you see phenoxybenzamine, this phenoxybenzamine is useful for the treatment of hypertensive episodes. Where is this phenoxybenzamine used? It is used to prevent hypertensive episodes, because what is the action of phenoxybenzamine or all these alpha blockers? They cause vasodilatation and they cause hypotension. So as a result you are using it in hypertensive episodes, especially in pheochromocytoma. Actually in pheochromocytoma hypertensive episodes, this is the drug of choice. Okay, now this phentolamine is also used in the treatment of, I think red is only fine, right? Okay, it is also used in the treatment of hypertensive crisis, in clonidine withdrawal, and in cheese reaction. It is used in hypertensive crisis, in clonidine withdrawal, and cheese reaction. So what are the side effects of these blockers? Okay, so what are the side effects of this? The main side effects. Okay, so what are the side effects of this? The main side effects of this include, there is vasodilatation. You see, there is reflex tachycardia. The major side effect is presence of reflex tachycardia, and because of vasodilatation there will be decreased blood supply to the brain also, leading to vertigo and fainting. And this also causes something called as retrograde ejaculation, and it can lead to meiosis and nasal stuffiness also. Because of increased urine flow, improved urine flow, it causes sphincter relaxation. So all these are side effects of these alpha blockers. Now we have seen about the non-selective alpha blockers. Now let us learn about the selective alpha blockers. So these are the selective alpha blockers. So what are they? The selective alpha blockers include prazosin, terazosin, dexazocin, alfuzosin. These all are ending with the word zosin. So what does these cause? All these will cause vasodilatation, because alpha 1 by itself is causing vasoconstriction. So when we block this alpha 1 receptor, so it will cause vasodilatation. Okay, this vasodilatation will decrease BP. There is no alpha 2 activity, so there is no reflex increase in sympathetic outflow, and thus there is lesser tachycardia, which is important effect. But there is one thing which is very characteristic side effect, which you see, there will be postural hypotension, or something called as first dose hypotension. So because of that, it should always be given at bedtime. There is also side effect of retrograde ejaculation, which you have to take into account. Okay, so first drug which you have to see here is about prazosin. So what are you going to see in prazosin? This prazosin is preferred in patients with hypertension with dyslipidemia. It is used in hypertension with dyslipidemia. It is present in hypertension with diabetes mellitus, and it is the drug of choice, but it is not the drug of choice. The drug of choice for hypertension with diabetes mellitus is ACE inhibitors, but you can also give this in patients with hypertension with diabetes mellitus. It is also the treatment for scorpion bite. It is also used as treatment of scorpion bite. So if you see prazosin, it is used in hypertension with dyslipidemia. It is used in hypertension with diabetes mellitus, but the drug of choice for hypertension with diabetes mellitus is ACE inhibitors. It is also used in scorpion sting bite. The next group of drugs is, you have tamsulosin and sildosin. Okay, tamsulosin and sildosin, if you see, they are used as drug of choice in benign prostatic hypertension. So this is important, and they have no postural action. Sorry, they have no postural hypertension, because if you see, alpha 1 is again divided into two types, which is alpha 1A and alpha 1B. This alpha 1A is present, has its action on prostate, whereas this alpha 1B has the action on blood vessels. Okay, with the help of this alpha 1B action, there is vasoconstriction. So because of that, when this tamsulosin and sildosin are the alpha 1A receptor antagonists, so alpha 1B is completely spared, and as a result there is no postural hypotension. But what side effects can be seen here? Here you can see something called as intraoperative floppy iris syndrome is associated with this during cataract surgery. Okay, tamsulosin and sildosin are associated with intraoperative floppy iris syndrome. Then we have indoramine and urapadil. Indoramine and urapadil, what are they? Where are they used? Indoramine and urapadil, these are actually used in hypertensive emergencies. What are they? Indoramin and urapadil, hypertensive emergencies. So this is about alpha blockers. Then after alpha blockers we have selective alpha 2 blockers. Okay, in the selective alpha 2 blockers, what do you see here? Here what is alpha 2 doing? Alpha 2 is an autoreceptor. So as a result there is not much not much useful in this alpha 2 blockers, but the drugs which are available are yohimbine and iodoxazoxan are available. Yohimbine and iodoxazoxan are available. Now coming to the beta blockers. So these beta blockers are divided. So here beta blockers are, there are actually three. If this is the beta receptor has three types. That is, we have beta 1, beta 2 receptor, and we have beta 3 receptor. Okay, so there can be one non-selective, two selective, and third which have special properties. So we have divided this into three generations actually. In the first generation is first generation or non-selective beta blocker, then we have second generation or selective beta blocker, then we have third generation or you can say special properties beta blocker. So if you see first generation or non-selective beta blocker, these are the main drugs which are involved in this. That is given by the mnemonic NAPTOP, which includes nadolol, allopurinol, propranolol, timolol, oxprenolol, pindolol. So what are they? Nadolol, allopurinol, propranolol, timolol, oxprenolol and pindolol. What are they again? Nadolol, allopurinol, propranolol, timolol, oxprenolol and pindolol. You should remember this for sure. Then we have second generation selective beta blockers. These include the following. One, we have selective, right? So we have beta 1 selective, and that is beta 1 is acts on heart, right? So as beta 1 acts on heart, so it is cardio selective. And we have beta 2 selective blockers also. So if you see beta 2 selective blocker is butoxamine. This butoxamine has no use clinically. Now here we have beta 1 blockers. These beta 1 blockers are these drugs. If you see, what are they? You can see this is nebivolol. See, this is given by the mnemonic beta 1 selective blocker or cardio selective blocker. The mnemonic is new beta blockers are exclusively cardio selective mainly. So the first name N is nebivolol, B is betoxolol, other B is bisoprolol, A is acebutolol and etinolol, okay, E is esmolol, C is celiprolol, M is metoprolol. So all these are actually preferred in diabetes mellitus, bronchial asthma, peripheral vascular disease and hyperlipidemia. So what are these beta 1 selective beta 1 blockers are cardio selective. These are new beta blockers are exclusively cardio selective mainly. That is nebivolol, which is most cardio selective, and we have betoxolol, bisoprolol, acebutolol, etinolol, esmolol, celiprolol and metoprolol. Okay, then we have third. The third is third generation beta blockers. These include different types. One, the beta blockers with vasodilatation activity, that is beta blocker plus alpha blocker activity. These have beta blocker plus alpha blocker activity. What are they? They are given by the mnemonic CLAMP, and these include carvedilol, labetalol, medroxolol and bucindolol. See, these are beta blockers with vasodilatation property which are given by the mnemonic CLAMP, which include carvedilol, labetalol, medroxolol and bucindolol. Okay, then we have those beta blockers which release nitrous oxide. The beta blockers which release nitrous oxide are nitric oxide, sorry, those release nitric oxide. The beta blockers which release nitric oxide are given by the mnemonic CNN. What are they? That is, C is celiprolol, N is nebivolol, again nipradelol. Celiprolol, nebivolol, nipradelol. Celiprolol, nebivolol and nipradelol are those release nitric oxide. Then we have those with beta 2 agonist and beta blocking activity. They have beta 2 agonistic activity also. So that is the reason they can be used in bronchial asthma. Because they have beta 2 agonistic activity, we have CB, that is celiprolol, cartiolol, bopindolol. Celiprolol, cartiolol and bopindolol. Then we have calcium channel blocking activity present along with this beta blocking activity. So they are CBB. C is calcium channel with B blocker. So CB blocker, that is calcium channel and beta blocker. So these include carvedilol, CBB mnemonic, carvedilol, vivantelol and betoxolol. Calcium channel blockers with beta blockers include carvedilol, vivantelol and betoxolol. Then we have the final one, which is beta blockers with potassium channel openers. So this include beta blocker with potassium channel openers include tilsolol. This is tilsolol. Then what else are there? There are even more special beta blockers which include beta blocker, this include beta blocker with intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. These include beta blocker with intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. This is beta blocker with beta 1 agonist. Okay, so these include, the mnemonic is they contain partial agonist like property. C for celiprolol and cartiolol, P for pindolol, A for alpranolol and SC-butalol, then L for labetalol, P again for penbutalol and oxprinolol. Okay, so we have celiprolol, cartiolol, pindolol, alpranolol, SC-butalol, labetalol and penbutalol. So these are beta blockers with intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. Then we have the next is beta blockers with membrane stabilizing activity. So this membrane stabilizing activity is nothing but local anesthetic potential. So where are they seen? They have these beta blockers with membrane stabilizing activity or local anesthetic potential. These will block sodium channels and they are used in antiarrhythmic action. So they are used in antiarrhythmic action and they are avoided in glaucoma. Why are they avoided in glaucoma? Because they cause corneal anesthesia. Because of their membrane stabilizing property, they cause corneal anesthesia and thus they are avoided in glaucoma. So we will see those drugs. So the mnemonic is possess mainly local anesthetic potential. This P for propranolol, M for metoprolol, L for labetalol, A for SC-butalol, P for pindolol. These are preferred in beta blocker sensitive patients. Okay. Then what are they? Propranolol, metoprolol, labetalol, SC-butalol, pindolol. Okay. Then we have lipid insoluble beta blockers. So these are the beta blockers which are lipid insoluble. Because they are lipid insoluble, they are excreted in the kidney and thus they are contraindicated in renal failure. Okay, what are the drugs include here? Celiprolol, etinolol, SC-butalol. Then we have nordalol, betoxolol, bisoprolol and sotalol, cannabis. That is celiprolol, etinolol, SC-butalol, nordalol, betoxolol, bisoprolol and sotalol. Okay, so here the most important thing is this is the long acting beta blocker which is nordalol. Nordalol here is the long acting beta blocker, longest acting beta blocker. Now this esmolol which is seen here, this is the shortest acting beta blocker. Why is this esmolol the shortest acting beta blocker? Because it is metabolized by RBC esterases. Okay, next. So we have seen different types of beta blockers. So let us now learn about the beta blockers which are non-selective. That is non-selective beta blockers. So in the non-selective beta blockers, first we have beta 1 blocker, okay, which is non-selective. These beta 1 blockers have action only on beta 1 receptors. So beta 1 receptors action is on the heart. They increases heart rate, they increases force of contraction, they increases velocity of conduction. But now because of this blockade, the beta 1 blockers decrease the myocardial oxygen demand, they decrease the force of conduction, they decrease the velocity of conduction, okay. So as a result, these are used in classic angina, okay. Then, and these can cause coronary vasoconstriction, so they are contraindicated in variable angina. Remember, beta 1 blockers are used in classic angina and they are contraindicated in variable angina. Then we have beta 2 blockers. What are beta 2 blockers? What does beta 2 do? Beta 2, this not the blocker but the beta 2, this causes vasodilatation. Because this beta 2 causes vasodilatation, this beta 2 blocker causes vasoconstriction. So because it causes vasoconstriction, it will worsen the peripheral vascular disease. Because it worsens the peripheral vascular disease, this will worsen the peripheral vascular disease, and because it worsens the peripheral vascular disease, this is contraindicated in Raynaud's disease. This you should remember for sure. And it causes bronchoconstriction also, okay. It normally causes bronchodilatations, but here it causes bronchoconstriction. Now because of bronchoconstriction, it is contraindicated in asthma. Then it increases LDL and decreases HDL, so it is not used in dyslipidemia, okay. Then it decreases the aqueous production. As it decreases the aqueous production, it can be useful in glaucoma. So what are the things where beta blockers are not used, especially beta 2 blockers? Asthma, in Raynaud's disease, and in peripheral vascular diseases, and in dyslipidemia we do not use beta 2 blockers. So here, what is the diabetes mellitus and beta blocker relationship? See, in diabetes mellitus, there is increased chances of patient going into hypoglycemia. This hypoglycemia which the diabetes mellitus patient develops can be due to insulin induced hypoglycemia, or it can be due to decreased diet or skippage of diet. Anything can lead to hypoglycemia. So whenever hypoglycemia occurs, there will be symptoms which through which this hypoglycemia manifests. Those include, there will be shivering, sweating, lightheadedness, epigastric pain, tachycardia, fainting. All these are the symptoms through which the hypoglycemia is manifesting. So all these are which type of symptoms? They are sympathetic cholinergic symptoms. But if we give beta blockers, these beta blockers causes hypoglycemia by themselves. But whenever there is hypoglycemia, okay, and there is beta blockers, all these symptoms which we have seen are actually the result of beta receptors. Now these beta receptors have been blocked, so all these symptoms will not be seen, okay. So there won't be any sympathetic symptoms which have been normally seen are absent, and as a result there will be severe hypoglycemia. Because if the person feels these symptoms, he immediately goes to the kitchen and he eats some sugar. But because of these beta blockers, now these manifestations of sympathetic stimulation or sympathetic symptoms were not seen, and as a result the patient lands up in very severe hypoglycemia. So because of this, these beta blockers are contraindicated in diabetes mellitus. Next about these drugs, if you see this esmolol is actually the drug of choice in intra-op and post-op hypertension and arrhythmias. Esmolol is drug of choice in intra-op and post-op hypertension and arrhythmias. Then if you see celiprolol, this celiprolol is preferred beta blocker in asthma, and it is also drug of choice in hypertension with bronchial asthma. In hypertension with bronchial asthma, celiprolol is the drug of choice. In hypertension with bronchial asthma. Then we have acebutol. Acebutol undergoes metabolism and it forms diacetolol. And betoxolol, this betoxolol is preferred in glaucoma patients along with history of bronchial asthma. Glaucoma plus bronchial asthma, we give betoxolol. Hypertension plus bronchial asthma, we give celiprolol. So celiprolol we give in hypertension plus bronchial asthma. Betoxolol we give it in glaucoma plus bronchial asthma. Now, which beta blockers are contraindicated in renal failure? The beta blockers which are contraindicated in renal failure are those which are excreted in renal route. They are the mnemonic is ANDS, that is atenolol, nordelol and sotalol. So what is this sotalol? Sotalol is potassium has some potassium blocking property, and it is used as class 3 antihypertensive drug. Then we have carvedilol. What is this carvedilol? It is the beta blocker which is used in chronic congestive heart failure. Okay. Carvedilol is used in chronic congestive heart failure. Sotalol is useful in arrhythmia, has antiarrhythmics, class 3 antiarrhythmics. Now, what are the uses of these beta blockers? There are multiple uses which we see of these beta blockers. So, if you see, they can cause in CNS, in CNS they are used in performance anxiety, essential tremors, primary migraine, extrapyramidal symptoms like akathisia, and alcohol withdrawal syndrome. All these are treated by propranolol. Indeed, propranolol is the drug of choice for performance anxiety disorders, essential tremors, prophylaxis of migraine, extrapyramidal symptoms, that is akathisia, and alcoholic withdrawal syndrome. In eye, if you see, in glaucoma, timolol is preferred, and betoxolol is preferred in patients with bronchial asthma plus glaucoma. Then in CVS, it is used in they are used in hypertension, arrhythmias, MI, angina, and hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. In esophageal variceal bleed, propranolol is used. In portal hypertension prophylaxis, propranolol is used, but the drug of choice is octreotide. Okay. Then in hyperthyroidism, propranolol is used because this propranolol inhibits the conversion of T4 to T3, and thus it also decreases the tremors. So we can use propranolol in hyperthyroidism. In infantile hemangioma, which is the most common vascular tumor of infancy, you can use this propranolol. Okay. So these are the different uses of propranolol. So we have these uses, which is CNS uses of eye, which is glaucoma, then CVS uses, and we have esophageal variceal bleeding, portal hypertension, which is propranolol, hyperthyroidism, which is propranolol, infantile hemangioma, which is again propranolol. Then if there is beta blocker poisoning, what should you do? In beta blocker poisoning, the drug used is glucagon. Beta blocker side effect is impotency. Okay. Now the next group of drugs which are important here is anti-glaucoma drugs, which we will do in our next class. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. Thank you.